Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in my wonderful interviews. Today we're going to talk about a very serious subject, not to say that all my subjects are serious, but this one is a little sensitive. So if you have children in the room, I would suggest that you push them out somewhere else. Tell them that the puddles outside are quite nice to jump about in Wellington boots. Obviously make sure they're not very deep puddles. Because we are going to delve into the murky world of sex and children. And my guest today is a guest that's been on the show and is not normally associated with this sort of thing, but stumbled across something that made his jaw drop. And he said, I've got to get this out. I've got to talk to people. And you've got two more viewers than I have. Please, can I come on your show and talk about it? It is Crypto Rich. Hello, Crypto Rich. How are you?
Richard, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure having you back on the show. And of course, don't forget, you can go and check out Crypto Rich. It says here, fill our pockets with crypto profits.
You say it so well.
It's like I practice what I preach. So my pockets are full of all that kryptonite from Superman, whatever it is. Anyway, I don't understand. We're not going down the Bitcoin route. Now, we are actually going to talk about something very, very serious. Because this is something that is going on. It's premeditated, it's come from on high, and it is affecting children up and down this nation and most likely across the world. So over to you, Crypto. Tell me the reason that you wanted to, tell me a little bit about yourself for those people who don't know who you are and what you do. Big opportunity to just, promote what you do. Sure. And then let's get into the serious matter.
Yes, Richard, thank you so much for having me on again. And thank you also at such short notice, because I know your schedule's kind of crazy and busy and stuff, and you made it all work when I told you what this was about. So I really appreciate that. And I started off as Crypto Rich in April 2017, but since then, subsequently, I cover a certain medical intervention and how harmful that has been and why we had to take that medical intervention. I cover that as well. So I interview loads of doctors about that issue. I also cover politics and economics, and how I got into cryptocurrency, as I told you before we started recording, was through gold and silver. So I also do some stuff on gold and silver every now and then. But really, one of the things I'm really, really interested in is the Great Reset and the different aspects of it, the LTNs and the ULEZ and the sexualization of children.
That's where we're going to go today, unfortunately. But fortunately, because we've got to make people aware of all of this.
Yeah. And then one thing I want to let people know, I have mentioned it on my channel, is I'm actually a child protection social worker. And that's what I do full time. I've been doing it for many, many years. So I've got some expertise in this area and some knowledge of the law. And I want to start by telling you what happened. Excuse me, I've got an itch in my nose. And then as I say this to people, I'd like you to do the same. Take note and do the same. Go to your local supermarket, whether it's Sainsbury's or Tesco's or Asda or Morrison's or the Co-op or whichever one it is. Spar, do the same as I did. And here's what I did. So I think it was on Friday evening, I went to a local Sainsbury's where I live, and I went to the children's sweets section, and I saw a packet of sweets by a company called Cuddly Kittens. And they were on the sweets that I was looking for were on the second shelf above the floor. And these are wild strawberry flavor, and they have across the top, sex education. And there's text on the back. That's part of it is like sex and sweets go together.
Well, we'll have a look at that. We'll have a look at because we've got the website to go to.
Yes.
Now, I didn't know this till quite recently. This sex education, I thought, was just something that was done with schools, but it's actually a Netflix television program, a series. But it's not aimed at children, I don't think.
I don't know. I don't watch Netflix.
So I mean, it's so people watching this may well know. If you don't have a subscription to Netflix, then potentially you don't know what this thing is.
Well, it's sweets that are designed to appeal to children, that say that on the back, sex and sweets go together and more, which we'll go through in a moment. In the children's sweets section, there was a woman passing by, and I said, "Excuse me, I just want your opinion on something. Are you a mother?" She goes, "Yes." And I said, "What do you think of this?" And she goes, "Oh my God, this is shocking." And then she didn't stay. It was rush hour, right? She had things to do. And then I asked one of the staff, can I speak to the manager, please? She said, okay. And then she went and got over the manager, and the manager came over. And I said, look, have you seen these? Sex education, sex and sweets go together. He goes, oh, that's a bit odd. I said, could you remove them? He goes, no, I'm not going to remove them. And by the way, I'm like this, right? Inside. I said, look, I'm a social worker. 1989 Children's Act. Children have to be protected from exposure to risk of significant harm. So you have to protect children from risk of significant harm. And then the other one I quoted is the Sexual Offences Act. I said, you cannot, it's a criminal offense to entice or induce or deceive children to engage in sexual activity. And you could be personally liable. So will you please remove them? He said yes. And then he did. And before I left the store, I checked they weren't there on the store anymore. Now, I invite other people to do this as well. You know, go to your local supermarket, go to the kids section. They want to sell these sweets, fine, but not in the kids' sweets section. And I was inspired because I saw to do this. I heard about this from a video done by a woman called Laura Nina. She's got a YouTube channel. She did this in her local Tesco's, and then I thought I got to check this out. And I thought, okay, well, you've got a much larger reach than me, Richard. So
Here we are.
let people know.
So I just flashed up there on the screen. Let me just do that again. There's some. Hang on a minute. Let's get it. Here we go. And this is from the legislation government website, and it says here that Act, Sexual Offences Act of 2003,
Section
and
10.
Section 10, causing and inciting a child to engage in sexual activity. And so what you were saying is that you mustn't influence children with all of this?
Yeah,
Is that
this legislation prevents grooming. You
right?
can't go and groom children, somebody under 16 to engage in any form of sexual activity. That's against the law, as it should be. I mean, it's against common law and it's also illegal.
Now, can you define what grooming means? Because grooming is a weird word. You take your dog to a grooming place. You are a groom if you are the male partner of somebody getting married. So, what is it, just from your point of view as a social worker, what does it mean when you groom children?
Okay, I'm going to give you a slightly longer answer, right?
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
the pedophiles who prey on children have to be incredibly, incredibly manipulative.
Right.
Because there's no tolerance for that sort of activity. We are revulsed by it. It's biological suicide. So for a pedophile to get away with it, they have to be incredibly, incredibly sly, cunning, and manipulative. So grooming is the process by which a child is manipulated into sexual activity. But also, it isn't just the child that's manipulated, it's the people around the child, including the adults that would otherwise be protecting that child. They have to be really manipulative. Somebody who's gay, a man who's gay or a woman who's lesbian, it's no big deal. They can come out and own up to it, right? But pedophiles, no, they have to be sly. So they have to groom and they have to prepare.
Hmm.
And I've heard of one case where a guy was a lodger for 18 years, grooming the children, grooming the mother, in that he was safe and everything before he started preying on the children.
And
It's
so, when
just
you say, well, can you give me an example of what you mean by grooming? You're being what extra nice are you?
well, one is that we all heard the myth of using sweets, right?
Mm.
Don't get into a stranger's car or offer you
Right.
sweets, right?
Come and see my puppies, that sort
Yeah,
of
come
thing.
see my puppies, all that sort of stuff. But most sexual offenses are committed by people known to the victim.
Mm.
But nevertheless, they have to prepare the victim in a certain way. And I mean, I could do it by example of a particularly well-known person. You
Okay.
want to show that video?
So you advised me that now I'd just like to say before we show this that hang on a second. We're not suggesting that this person is necessarily. That's for you to make your mind up, just so you know. but you're saying that this activity is very much on board with that grooming process. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Yes. Okay. So
Yes.
let's go from this one to let's have a look. I think here we have
Here it
this.
is.
I don't know who this person is, but we'll just watch a little bit of the activity that this person is doing. Hang on, I just need to get the framing quite right. Hang on, we do it that way, I think. So there's
This
this
is on
chap in.
bitshoot.com.
Yeah, I can leave
These
the
videos
links.
were on YouTube, but I believe they got deleted,
Right, it
censored.
may well. So there's a gentleman there, and he's doing a lot of
You know,
touching,
what
sniffing.
happens, what happens here when people become congressmen or women or whatever, or senators, they go to Capitol building or White House to have a photograph with this person.
Yeah,
And they got their wife and kids with them, and then this person does that to them. Now, on the if challenged, this person could say, "Wait a minute, I'm just being friendly,"
yeah.
because there's nothing that's beyond the pale there.
No, I mean it's and again, I just like to reiterate, we're not suggesting one way or another. Of course, it's up to the viewer to make their mind up about the particular individual that we have shown, and we're not mentioning any names and making any aspersions. However, it's just that activity was a great and easy to get hold of illustration that is legal to show.
Yes, yeah. I certainly would not want my children in a photo with that person, with him doing that. Not at all, not at all.
No, I mean
Because
it is unusual behaviour. You don't
yeah,
see that often. Let's
but
put
it's
it like
and
that.
it's just on the edge.
Right.
Because if challenged, they could say, "Look, I'm just being friendly," but it does push the boundary a little bit. And what it does, and this is what these sweets do, is it desensitizes children. It introduces this whole other arena of discourse, of language, of behavior into that child's world
Mm.
and desensitize them. Do you want to show the actual sweet packet and what it says on the sweets?
Yeah, let's have a little look at that. Hang on. So we'll go from that. Let's get this that from that tab to this company called. These are called Candy Kittens.
Candykittens.co.uk. Candy Kitten, I'm not endorsing their products at all. I've never actually eaten any of their sweets, and I certainly wouldn't buy this one. But if people want to go to the website and perhaps leave a review or contact them, maybe tell them about the Sexual Offences Act, Section 10. So there you go.
So again, I'm just going to put the caveats in because I feel it's important. We are reading from a genuine website. It does say at the top here Netflix, so it's associated with a television program called Sex Education, of which I'm not familiar at all. So I don't know if it's aimed at children and it's a sort of beginning to show kids about sex and it's guided program, or whether it's an adult program that is about sex. Or I have no idea. I don't know if it's a comedy, a documentary, or a sitcom or anything like that. But so the product in and of itself is
No, go to the
this.
top. Go to the top, Richard, above the
Yeah,
heart. You see that little white thing, that white disc?
there, yeah,
It's a condom. It's got a picture of a condom.
right, okay. It could be a flying saucer, but
No,
I
it's a
think you're quite
condom.
right.
As we'll
It's a.
as we'll go through
But
the text, you'll see.
But before we get into the dialogue on there, I just want to say this because there's no reason that a manufacturer of sweets can't make sweets aimed for adults in, say, the shape of condoms, penises, vaginas, boobs, whatever you want to make them of, and sell them to an adult audience in presumably adult shops, or online, where children ordinarily would not. It would be impossible for them to get to and see them. So we're going to look at the product, but we can't really blame the people making it. It's the managers of the supermarkets for displaying them in a children's area. That would be my initial beef.
I
I
would
mean, I
I would say it's both. I would say it's both. Um, so when you let's go through the text,
okay.
and then I'll
Let's
say how
let's
come it's both.
okay. No problem at all. I'm oops. Hang on, fiddling with my buttons here. Which on a program like this is a bit awkward. So here is the blurb about it. It says sex education wild strawberry bag, and as you're quite right, it says sweets and sex, they go together, they go hand in hand. Obviously, After all, they both aim to make you feel good, right? So we've teamed up with the hit Netflix show Sex Education to celebrate sex, the fun times, the awkward times, the downright dirty times. No judgment here, just a whole lot of love. Unleash your wild side with our fruity explosion of wild strawberry vegan sweets. We've even added some condom-shaped sweets in each pack to spice things up.
Yeah,
Developed by our team in London, we blend big flavours with honest ingredients to bring you sweets that taste as great as they look, no compromises. This product is a single bag of our wild strawberry gourmet sweets, and then it gives you the ingredients, which
now
so that's the
all their other products, Candy
yeah.
Kittens, are all absolutely fine. They use the same sort of design. They're completely okay for children. This one looks like all their other products, is being
Right.
marketed like all their other products in the children's section. Now, a 16-year-old could buy it, fair enough, they're over the age of consent, but then they can pass it on to their 9-year-old. Or a 9-year-old could look at it and read it and pass it on to a 6-year-old. And then kids sucking a sweet that's in the shape of a condom. Why? Why does a 9-year-old need to do that?
Well,
What does it
clearly, I
serve
mean,
them?
clearly, I'm not standing up for the company at all or anything, and clearly
Yes.
the kids don't, they shouldn't be, and I absolutely say that. The company, as you say, if all the other sweets and the company makes just general sweets for children, which is mostly the big market for sweets, although, adults will eat sweets as well, then they should clearly market this as inappropriate for children. And they ought to be telling the markets that they sell it to, i.e. the supermarkets, corner shops, etc., that this is not aimed at children. And if they're not doing that,
They're
then
not doing that.
they are liable, I would think, for being sued by members of the public for doing just that. Or at
Yeah.
least, as you say, the bottom line is to tell them, did you know? Because the chances are the supermarket, the stressed supermarket managers who've got no choice in what was purchased, has no idea what's in the boxes. Just goes, oh yeah, some sweets. We shove them down here. We
Yeah.
shove those. Are making just blind, display decisions because the managers up above have not told them.
Yes. Well, what I imagine it goes on, and I worked in retail many, many years ago, right? Is the supermarket, the buyers will have a relationship with Candy Kittens. They purchase loads and loads of products. Candy Kittens can then stipulate, they make an agreement between the two about where their products are going to be displayed, what price they're going to be sold for. What are the new cycles coming through? How much do they need for Christmas? All of that, right? So it's all worked out. So Candy Kittens would know, the supermarkets would know, okay, well, these sweets are going to go into the children's section because that's what they're there for. Now, a particular manager of a large superstore or supermarket isn't necessarily going to know. They're not going to be able to track it, which is why it's so important for us to go and make them aware. So how this is being done is it's sly, under the radar, drip, drip, drip sexualization, a bit like the sexualization agenda that the World Health Organization are rolling out into schools, which we may come to later on, right? But that it wasn't deliberate, I disagree with you. If you think that you are in the company, you're the head of the company, maybe head of product design. Somebody said, "Hey, let's put some condom style sweets in there." Instead of like strawberries or whatever, let's have a few condom ones, spice things up, right? And let's put a picture of a condom on the corner in the front. And what about the text? What should we say? Oh, I know. We'll say sex and sweets go hand in hand, obviously. We'll say that. So that would
Yeah,
and
no, no,
that would have been
I'm
quality
not,
assured,
I'm not disagreeing
audited,
with you, but
tested, checked, all of that, right?
well, certainly should have been.
It
I
would
mean,
have been.
right, okay. If anyone from Candy Kitten wishes to get in touch with Crypto Rich and sue the pants off him, that's up to you. I'm trying to put a balanced show because I certainly don't want to have the legislation thrown at me. But it would seem that the product is inappropriately positioned
Yes.
and possibly inappropriately designed, that it could, let's say, be audiences or the intended customers are misguided to get it. So in other words, children might get this by mistake.
Yeah.
I'm
Except
just putting I'm putting it very carefully because
Okay.
we're not making big accusations. However, we do know, and I have no problem with the next part of our conversation, is of how the sexualization of children is being rolled out by, not by individual company as such, or at least not specifically this individual company, but by the think tank that it's the WEF, and seems to be in lockstep with the government.
Yeah. Yes. And it's part of the Great Reset agenda. Both, I see it, right. And then with regards to the sweets, the other thing that's missing for me about the sweets, one, there's nothing that says this is for adults only.
Right,
Adult
I
display. It
agree.
doesn't say that, right? And then also, there's no context. There's no moral context. There's no context of the importance of relationships. There's no context about any sort of religion or faith or any sort of moral values. Nothing. No, they just go hand in hand. And
Well, if you said this is adults only, I don't think you would need to
I
have
wouldn't.
the
No.
you wouldn't need the
Yeah.
moral things,
Super.
and it should, and it shouldn't just be given to children. Full stop. You know, there's no way that in my world, a sweet that looks like a child sweet would be sold with anything that is related to sex, and even if it is a television program, it it is completely irrelevant unless they are over 16, over 18.
Yeah, absolutely. Supermarkets sell condoms, but they're not placed in the children's section and they're
No.
not designed to appeal to children.
Yeah.
Objection to that.
No. And I guess if you I mean, you know, if you were going to sell them in the shops, then have them next to the condoms on a very high shelf.
Yep.
And you have then broken the barrier by the proximity and the type of products it's with, by saying these sweets are for family, anyone in the family, including young children, and these objects are for those who are of appropriate age and practicing, you know, the activities that they're aimed at,
Yes.
and that's where they should be, if anywhere.
Yes. And
And
don't have them designed to appeal or look like other children's sweets.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because it must be embarrassing for a mum or a dad if a child comes running up and says, "What's this supposed to be?" and pulls it out. You know, 1 minute it's a kitten, and the next minute it's a, it is, what is this? And the
Yeah.
dad would or might laugh and just go, "Well, it looks like a bloody condom," which of
But
course goes straight into the kid's head and go, "Oh look, it's condom, it's
well,
condom."
but also, Richard, it may be worse than that because if a family have been buying candy kitten sweets regularly for a while, this new flavor comes out, they just throw it in the supermarket trolley. Adults don't even know. And the
Mm,
9-year-old or the 10-year-old is looking at the text on the back. And perhaps this 9-year-old or 10-year-old has already been sexually abused.
right.
Then you're now compounding that trauma.
And if the shape of a condom is familiar to them as an object of terror, maybe,
Yeah,
if they've been sexually abused, or it's just giving you that, you know, familiarizing with this unusual object, which normally you don't get to see until you're much older. And,
yeah.
you know, perhaps if you're
It's
in your 12, 13s, you're passing them around not knowing quite what to do with them, but it's quite a cheeky thing. Oh, look what I've got. That's a slightly different thing than a company deliberately manufacturing something that ends up in the hands of children. So let's move on to see how nefarious the Great Reset and the WEF are, and why we know that this is a thing, because it's on their damn website.
Now, we're not suggesting that candy kittens have any association with the World Health Organization sexualization agenda, but there is this sort of culturally, I think it's happening, this normalization of sex for children.
So this is a document you sent me to. Okay, I'll put all the links in the description so you can find these and make your own mind up. WHO Regional Office for Europe and BZGA. I'm not quite sure what BZGA stands for,
Mm.
but it also here says Federal Central Centre for Health Education, a framework of for policymakers, education and health authorities and specialists in Europe. And there's the nefarious sign of the WEF with the snake and the Roman laurel leaves going round there. And we go right down to something like page 38 on their hugely boring document. And then you come to this bit here, part 2, sexual education matrix. And we have to fly down here a little bit. And
And what
here
this
is the.
says is what children should know or have experience of according to certain ages. Now, I recorded a video with Jana Linden, who's a campaigner from the National Women's Council in Ireland, and she took me through this in detail, and I was horrified because, and I'm gonna because social workers don't know this is happening, teachers don't know this is happening. It's just being rolled out on the sly, on the quiet, sneakily in schools as part of their PHSC education. And then this bit, the bit that I showed you about, right, is for 0 to 4 year olds, according to the World Health Organization, a 0 to 4 year old should be given information about enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, early childhood masturbation.
There it is.
Early childhood
Early
masturbation for
childhood
a 0 to 4 year old.
masturbation. Discover your own body and your own genitals between 1 to 4. I mean, between 0 to 4. The fact that enjoyment of physical closeness is a normal part of everyone's life. I mean, physical closeness, that's just a hug with your mum or your dad, that's fine. But it's just come after this discovery of your own genitals. Tenderness and physical closeness is an expression of love and affection. But this early childhood masturbation.
That's the thing. A 0 to 4 year old. Now, 0 to 4 year olds ordinarily would have discovered their own body and they'll be messing about with it and exploring it and everything. But that's distinct from masturbation as an activity designed for sexual pleasure. 0 to 4 year olds have no notion of that. They don't need to know about that. They're not sexual beings yet, except according to the World Health Organization document, we become sexual beings at the point of birth. It's a groomer's charter, in my opinion.
It certainly does appear to be a groomer's charter.
And to give information about, so, not a 4 year old in reception class or in nursery. And by the way, just to let people know, if they don't know, it's like my kids never went to school. They were home educated. We did a great interview about that a while back, Richard. And I do cover that on my channel as well. And if you scroll down to some of the others, I can't remember where it is. Maybe if you do Control F.
Okay.
And you put in, I think, first sexual experience, and you'll be shocked.
First sexual experience.
There we go. First sexual experience. How old you got to be?
According to this comes under the 12 to 15.
12 to 15. First sexual experience. What's the age of consent in the UK?
Well, I think it's 16 or 18, isn't it?
No, it's 16. It's 16. So a 12-year-old.
A 12-year-old
should have information about their first sexual experience.
So role expectations and role behavior in relation to sexual arousal and gender differences, gender identity and sexual orientation, including coming out and homosexuality, how to enjoy sexuality in an appropriate way, taking your time, first sexual experience, pleasure, masturbation, orgasm. And as you so rightly say, here we go. This is for 12 to 15-year-olds.
Yeah, below the age of consent. And then if you go up, you look at, say, the ones for 6 to 9-year-olds, 9 to 12-year-olds, you'll find stuff that's equally horrifying. And I'll give you a link. I created a bit.ly link so people can go check this out for themselves. And then you need to speak to your school teachers. You need to say to them, what are you teaching? One of the things that this government has done, it has parents no longer have the right to withdraw their children from those classes. So if if you have a particular religious or moral code, and you don't want teachers teaching this to your kids, you want them to learn from the family or whatever, or in a Christian way or something, well, you can't withdraw them. You don't have that right.
And the thing about school is that, you don't know who these teachers are, for one thing. You enroll your kid into the school, or you register the child. He becomes under their guardianship. You don't necessarily, you've got a name of a teacher and you might have some qualifications to look at. You don't know, and this teacher is sharing this information plus their own experiences and opinions rolled into it. Your child, especially between 0 and 5, that is like a sponge absorbing everything. And you're doing it. I mean, David Edelman will say, who's been on the show several times, the people's lawyer, get your kid out of school. This
I
is
would say get your kid out of school.
no place for children.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And
Get
if
your
and
kids out
if
of
this
school.
if this does not give you the hairs on the back of your neck rising up, thinking, crikey, because the chances are you're not probably told, with a bit of paper that the kid comes rushing home with as he's had a lovely day at school with those grooming people and said, oh look, today we're going, or tomorrow we're going to do the sexual stuff. We're going to learn about masturbation. Can we? We've all been told to bring in a dildo. Oh, yeah, certainly, child. I'll see if I've got one somewhere knocking
Oh,
about. But
Richard.
I mean, this is the sort of thing, isn't it? This is the level of where we're going with all of this.
Well,
It's
yeah,
it's making it every day
every
and
day. And also, Richard, devoid of any context
context.
of religion, faith, culture, family, values, relationship. The whole document, the whole
Yeah.
matrix is all about pleasure, 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 pleasure. And there's one thing, there's another section in there. We don't need to look at it now. People can go and look at it themselves. We say
Mm.
that not something about like not, you don't have to say no to all unpleasant sexual touches. You don't have to say no.
You don't have to say no. Wait a minute. Your body is your own
Yes.
domain.
Yes.
Nobody has the right to touch you in any shape or form.
Yeah, no, this is a groomer's charter, and it's they're doing it in such a way that people don't know, slyly, sneakily. Oh, it's for your own good, which is what abusers always say. I'm doing this for your own good, so you shouldn't object. But what it creates, these children, excuse me, will grow up having been sexualized at an early age. This is the risk. Having been sexualized at an early age, unable to have stable relationships, low regard for themselves. Children who are sexualized at an early age are at higher risk of promiscuity, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, lower life expectancy, greater family dysfunction, poor relationship skills, low self-esteem, unemployment, low educational attainment. Everything goes the wrong way. And then what will give rise to is a whole generation of children who have those features. And then you have a society that doesn't function, and that also those children as children and as adults are easily manipulated and controlled because they become dopamine addicts. Early sexualization, that's what that creates. Adults who are addicted to dopamine. And then all you got to do is give them their dopamine rush one way or another, and they'll keep quiet.
It is anti-human. I
It's
mean,
completely anti-human.
so much of what we're seeing that is being given out as legislation is anti-human.
Yes.
And this is, if anything, if you start targeting children with this absolutely disgraceful type of material, then you should not be in any position of power to be over anyone.
Yeah.
And we have to push back against it. And
Absolutely.
also we've seen this in other, I mean, every now and again a scandal will come up where we'll see something inappropriate on children's clothing that's been printed, a message and all of this. So we have to be so vigilant now as parents of children or grandparents or just, anybody who knows anybody else who's got children, just aware. And as you say, the message is to tell the people who are putting this on the shelves to take them off.
Yeah. Take them off. And then one last thing, thank you for saying that, right? Is that it's part of the way, it's another mechanism, another process the WF are using to have us fight and
Yeah.
divided with each other, fighting and bickering with each other. The trans agenda, the open borders, the wars in Israel and Gaza and Ukraine and Russia, all to have us fighting with each other versus uniting against them.
Yeah.
And that's
We
something
need
we need to watch out for.
brilliant.
So
Chris,
please go to your supermarket, go to the children's sweet section, remind them, inform them, please remove them. Section 10, 2003 Sexual Offences Act.
yeah. And I mean, if you just say, do you think this is appropriate for children? And once they read the packaging, hopefully they will. I mean, if they don't, if they still think it's appropriate, then as you say, make them personally liable. Get their name. They have a name badge. Get their name, because the fear of God will come in when you've got their name and say, well, you're personally liable. I've put you on notice.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it. Thank you so much, Crypto Rich, filling our pockets with crypto profits.
Well, I think filling our pockets with freedom in this
It just
instance,
says
right?
that. It says that on your thing. It
I know, but
says it.
sometimes I say freedom.
Oh,
Freedom
well,
and liberty.
look, there it is. I'm only reading your damn thing, for goodness sake. I don't know. You better change your screen. It's in your big, massive studio that you have there in that old London town.
You've seen my big, massive studio.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you,
That. Be
Richard.
interested in the comments and what have you. We need to support each other in this war on our children. You know, sometimes I make light of some things, but these things are absolutely deadly serious, and we've got to stop our children. They're the next generation, and if we mess them up, we have very little in the future.
Yeah.
So there we are. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be back with more of my normal stuff. But in the meantime, from Crypto Rich and myself, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.